Hello everyone, which is probably the 20 people that will actually watch this video. Today we're going straight into our main story, to avoid the fact that I look like I'm in the Underground Railroad. We're going to be talking about illicit wildlife trafficking, which is a huge business. In fact, it's estimated to be $7.8 to $9.5 billion per year. I want to make it clear I got that statistic from ICE, so, let's keep focusing on the interview. Anyways, there are three parts to our story. Number one, what is Safari World? And why am I talking about a safari world when I just said we're going to be talking about wildlife trafficking? Number two, what are the problems this causes? And number three, what can we do to help? So what is Safari World? Well, Safari World is an animal theme park. And I'm actually just going to strip the jokes and all of the funny things I was going to say and just get straight into it. It is incredibly abusive to a lot of animals. It has a lack of stimulation for incredibly intelligent ones. It has gone over numerous investigations for smuggling previously, and it still is under numerous investigations as far as I can tell. Now, if you want to see the actual enclosures, because I'm not really going to be talking about the current abuse that happens there, but it is still important to mention it. So if you're curious on it and want to get super depressed, first of all, you're a sicko. Second of all, visit Aaron Gukowski on Instagram. He's a wildlife photographer who photographs wildlife crime, and he has a lot of information on Safari World, and specifically what they actually do over there to abuse their animals. But what I'm going to be talking about mainly is the larger impact it has. Safari World has over 45,000 animals and over 250 species, which we'll get into how exactly they got all of them, but it's a little shady. Whoa, what transition, what the heck? Okay, this is a quick interjection to say that I'm gonna have all my sources and little pictures on screen, but if you guys are actually super curious and aren't lazy enough or too lazy enough to actually pause it, I should mention that my sources include a GRASP or a CITES investigation from 2007, a 2003 and 2004 investigation by the IPPL or the International Primate Protection League. We got actual information from Safari World itself, which is how I found out how many shares Umnaj has, who's on the board, Liddy Kukacha, all of that good stuff. I've gone through multiple newspaper articles from Asian newspapers, which, wouldn't be the most trustworthy, but I'm going for them purely for the quotes. And I also took an article from MCG Asia, which was talking about pin and gambling. All right, go back to the video now. Keep watching it till the end. Wait, one last thing, I actually lied. I also had a 53-page PDF I visited from traffic.org, which was basically just talking about primate and trafficking videos. All right, anyways, I promised to end this super cool. This isn't clickbait, so actually watch the whole thing now. So we're starting out with Dej Kukacha. He's Asia's best pastry chef, and as far as I can tell, is the head of the family's food size. Now, he also has his three brothers, which include Umnaj, who is on board of Safari World. He owns over 13 million shares in Safari World, and is now the CEO of Kacha Brothers, or at least one of the two. Liddy Kukacha is the main brother in charge of Safari World. He is in charge of advertising, actually pretty much everything you can think of. How Safari World runs, Liddy Kukacha controls this. And we also have Duong Kukacha, who's on the board, and I'm actually not going to be talking about him too much because from Safari World itself, he's had votes to be removed from the board previously, and considering the fact I can find no information on him whatsoever, I'm going to assume he either left or isn't as big of a part of it as he once was, or if he ever was. There's one more thing we should talk about when we're talking about Umnaj and Duong, because we're not going to really bring them up at all later, but I just want to mention this. It seems they may have been grandfathered into the Kacha business. Let me give you an example. With Umnaj, he has no director training whatsoever. His previous experience and jobs includes a management trainee to a security company. From that, somehow, he became one of the CEOs of Kacha Brothers. Little convenient. I'm also going to introduce you to Pin Kukacha, who is a business tycoon and father to the four Kukacha brothers. He started out as a wildlife collector, which would explain his previous allegations of wildlife smuggling, and he owns, or at least is a major part of, a variety of businesses, mainly food and Safari World PCL, which he established in 1985. We'll get more into him later, but it's important to note that he was the person who started Safari World and still is a major part of it. So now that we know who the Kukachas are and what Safari World is, we can get to the actual exciting stuff. which to start out, we're going to go with a Great Apes Survival Project and Sites investigation in 2007. Pin, who was the owner at the time, was not available for an interview, which pretty convenient. They did find use of violence in orangutan training, which I mean, like, I don't know what else they were planning to expect, because how else are you going to train orangutans? Still horrible either way. They also met with the head vet of Safari World at the time, who refused to say where orangutans had come from, which is odd because this is like basic information that, you know, a head vet's expected to know for an animal's health, its history. It's pretty important. At one point in their meeting, he even suggested that they may have been traded for parrots, so they're coming up with any BS excuse at this point. The zoo claimed that 10 orangutans had been left at night by an unknown person in response to an investigation on the illegal importation of them, which, yeah, that happened. But this isn't even the first investigation. We can go back even further to 2003 and 2004 by an investigation by the IPPL, or the International Primate Protection League. Safari World at this time had amassed 140 orangutans, which, to put it in the words of the head investigator at the time, was just like a blatant example of animal smuggling into the country. And in fact, a 2003 investigation found 115 orangutans. When they did another raid in 2004, only 69 of the animals were found. 41 had just vanished into thin air. Safari World claimed that the animals had died of natural causes. In fact, they claimed that all of them died of pneumonia, and they burned the carcasses of the remaining one. It's a little odd, because 41 animals in 1 month is just a crazy number to all die of pneumonia and be burned. But who else are you going to believe? The Safari World's got to know best, right? Well, the Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation used DNA testing to prove that they were illegally imported into the country. So we have DNA evidence to show that the orangutans were being brought there. That's against the law. The Thailand government, I mean, I've done a bunch of reading online, and corruption isn't even a major part of a lot of these organizations of animal welfare in Thailand. In fact, a lot of it is understaffing or not having enough people. That's the main issue here. Despite them claiming that 41 died in 1 month, 36 of the missing 41 were found alive in small cages in the Bangkok Safari World, and they were basically planning to use these orangutans for those fake Muay Thai or boxing matches. 5 of them were never found. They could have been disappeared or probably killed or missing. There is a small part, I should mention, a possibility that could have happened to these 5 orangutans, which is pretty gruesome and pretty grotesque. That is, these orangutans could have been sold into sex labor. It's a possibility. I'm putting that out there. The reason I say this is because there have been a variety of reports showing that orangutans have been smuggled for sex trafficking reasons. Again, it's disgusting, but we have to put that out there. It could have happened. If you want to know more about that, no you don't, but Pony the orangutan is all I'm going to say. Pony the orangutan. Now, Pins faced wildlife smuggling and money laundering charges, but for some reason was never prosecuted. You know, billionaires are never bad, so I guess it's gotta be for some good reason, right? And if all of this still isn't enough to convince you he has some sort of involvement in illicit gambling, from MCG Asia, he has voiced his support for the development of entertainment complex during a parliamentary seminar. While clarifying his personal stance against gambling, he suggested considering casinos as part of a comprehensive tourism strategy. Really pause and ask yourself what the hell that means. In fact, you can rewind the video if you want and do it too, and you still won't have an answer because it just makes absolutely no sense. So yeah, he probably money laundered a little bit. Whoa, sudden interjection all over again. Yeah, I should probably mention that this gambling probably supports Safari Park in a huge way, because Liddy Kukacha said that the goal of the park is to create a new one every 10 years, and they already have 3. Which, if they already have 3 in such horrible conditions for the animals, or maybe they just can't afford anymore, makes you wonder where they're getting all this money from, huh? So all of this is very interesting, but you might not just realize how big of an issue Safari World actually is. So we're going to focus specifically on orangutans. Let me just, boom, put on some statistics and graphs up there. Although these show orangutans, I think they can go for most animals. In fact, the other graphs showed that this does go for most animals. Safari World smuggles a lot, and it's like a high number of animals into the country. One of the biggest smuggling operations there is. So yeah, it's a huge problem for exotic trafficking. So what can we do to help this? Number one, you got to share this video. Education is the most important thing. If you don't want to share this video, tell other people not to visit Safari World, or for that matter, any other safari park. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to identify the good zoos from the bad ones, or at least the ones that are pretending to be zoos. Number two is, according to Liddy Kukacha, 10% of visitors to Safari World are local. And after COVID-19, a lot fewer of the Russian visitors are coming. This means the park is at a lack of resources. In fact, they've actually had to scale down in the number of employees they have. This means the main problem is us, foreigners. We're visiting the park. This park is a tourist trap, and it's wildly successful. Thousands of foreigners, Americans, Europeans, come here every day. It's up to the developed countries to stop this issue. And apart from that, there isn't a lot we can do. What we can do is hope that the Thailand government gets some stricter laws on animal regulation and hopefully actually tries to enforce and prosecute these people with harder conviction. They're not going to do that for all we know right now. So it's up to us to stop visiting these parks. And some tips on how to recognize the good zoos from the bad ones, because I actually love zoos. Zoos are great. They're excellent for animals. Conservation is important. But this is the good zoos, not these bad ones that are posing as educational and conservationists. The good zoos could have some sort of accreditation in developed countries, such as AZA. If it's AZA accredited, it means it has enough enrichment and space for all of its animals. Bad zoos won't have any of these accreditations and will often be, you can pretty much just look at some of the images. These orangutans are sitting in concrete boxes. Do you think they're getting enough stimulation or what? But those are the main things. Look for accreditations. Another thing is, if you can touch the wild animals, don't visit it. Any place where you can touch wild animals is usually going to be bad. You got to be careful with those. So the average person, I'd say, just don't visit those places. Do research on the places you want to visit. If you see, and don't read it off their website, read it off others, because their website's obviously going to claim it's for conservation, but who knows what they really do. That's about it. All we can do is stop visiting these animal abusive areas, which are not only bad for the animals there, but are bad for a species as a whole. We made it to the end. Finally, it's over. I actually have 0 notes, and I had like 8 pages of them, so I'm actually very happy about this. You guys probably didn't enjoy listening to me talk about orangutans for under 15 minutes, but that's okay. Make sure to share this video. I don't really care if you like it, because that won't really help them in any way, shape, or form. But if you did like it, then I could become a billionaire, and I'd be just like Jeff Bezos. So I'd be like the greatest person on the planet. That's about it. See ya.